couple of times now, pop down to the masjid, please, and just give a little story about how I've ended up in prison and how I got out where I am now. I'm not here to glorify my crime or anything. I know the mistakes I've made and how I've changed my life and what I do now. I just got out of prison. I finished a 10-year prison sentence for drugs and fraud. I got out of prison in January this year. I'm on licence at the moment. I'm employed by Gloucestershire Police now. It sounds weird. I know my family still can't get their head around it. But I'll tell you a bit about me from a young age. I'm not going to bore you for ages, so inshallah I'll be quick and good as I can. From a young age, I'm from Reading. I've moved to Bristol now. From a young age, I've got a big family in Reading, mashallah, and I'm the youngest in the family. 3 older brothers, older sister, loads of aunties and uncles like we all do. From a young age, my brothers always used to get in trouble. So I've grown up to police coming to my house, kicking the door in. This was normal for me. This is what I grew up to. My brothers have done a couple of prison sentences their own time, so to me it was normal growing up. And I stuck to that. Went into school. I didn't get no GCSEs. I was more interested in hanging around my friends. And alhamdulillah, they all passed their GCSEs. I failed every single one. And for me to go and get into college or do anything further education, I couldn't get into anything because I failed everything. So I went to see a friend of mine at that time, and he made me dodgy certificates. So I got into A-levels. And I had no GCSEs. I got into doing A-levels in college, but it was so hard for me I couldn't do it because I didn't have the education. So I had to drop out of A-levels, and I went in to do business studies at college again. Again, I had to make dodgy certificates to get into doing it. I failed that as well. I didn't do well in education at all. All I used to do, sit in the college canteen and sit there with my mates, play cards every day. I'm not going to lie, I'll be honest about it. First time I got in trouble, at that age, someone was bad-mouthing me. Me and my mates went to his house, kidnapped him, took him to the woods, beat him up and left him in the woods. And I was 17 at the time. I'm not proud of it, but this is where I started. And at that age, I thought it was good. I liked it because I thought, I've got a duty solicitor, he turns up for me at court, he turns up for me at the police station, it's a good thing. I like it. I didn't understand that he was getting paid for legal aid and everything. So for me, I thought, yeah, this is all right. And, my friends thought of me as wow, he went to the police cells, he was there for 3 days or 2 days, they liked it. And I thought they look up to me. I enjoyed it even more. So I carried on getting into trouble. Even if that was fighting, kidnapping, any type of violence. If my friends were involved, I was involved. I'm not going to go into details what I've done, but I wanted to, at this age, I was 20s, in my 20s now, I wanted to make some money, so I went in to do some fraud. So I went and started off with mobile phone fraud, and I made so much money out of it that I went and bought a car rental company, a franchise, Europe car. And the franchise, I thought, yeah, it's a good business, it's going to be legit. Inshallah, it's going to do well for me. But the amount of outgoings that I had and the royalty fees I had to pay for this rental company, I thought, it's going to go bust. So I got all my cars back in and I rented them all to the local drug dealers in Reading. It was bad, but I had to make money at the time. I didn't think. I thought my mates, the people I had around me, I'll come to later on what happened, but I had hundreds of friends. I had loads of friends, which I thought so-called friends at the time. And this is the advice they would give me: forget renting your car, look, give it to this person. Even though he's a drug dealer, it doesn't matter. But it made a massive mistake for me, because the police in Reading had everyone under surveillance, and all these cars that belonged to me, they thought, instead of me renting the cars out, they thought I was the main drug dealer, and I was supplying the whole town, so which made it worse for me. At home, I used to live at home, my mum and my dad, elderly parents, and I was the youngest son. I looked after my mum and dad. Whatever I used to do, I always used to go home. Alhamdulillah, I always used to be good to my mum and dad, whatever I used to do. I don't justify it, but that's how I was. My door used to get kicked in by the police about 20 times a year, at least. And this is with my mum and dad at home. And we had, at some points, when it used to be Eid festivals or anything, Ramzan, family round doing iftari together, and police used to kick the door in with family round. Visitors come from all over, from London, Luton, everything. I was so embarrassed. I look back now, I feel ashamed. But at the time, I was thinking, oh, it's police. Part of the package, what I do is what I do. So they're going to come. My mum and dad had enough of me. They said, they gave me an ultimatum, either leave or stay. I said, look, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to get in trouble anymore. But again, it doesn't justify it. The people I had round me, when my so-called friends, the advice they were giving me wasn't great. I stayed at home. I carried on doing what I was doing, and I'll talk about what I got convicted for now. I got done for fraud. And I got about 90 odd or 100 odd cars. These cars were like Lamborghinis, just prestige cars, and I was shipping them out the country. And I was shipping to Albania, Pakistan, India, and stuff like that, and I was making money. I got arrested, got charged. There was me and a few other guys, we all got arrested. My so-called friends, like when we get arrested, oh yeah, don't worry, they all start telling tales on each other. So where you think, oh, my friend's lawyer, I've grown up with him, he would never hesitate, from my experience, to put you in it first and say, it wasn't me, it was all him. And that's what happened to me. I was on bail, and I got married as well, by the way. Just before I got arrested and I started this crime thing, I got married and I was at home, and my wife was living out with my mum and dad as well. After I got arrested, I was on bail for this. I tried to go straight, and I set up an ice cream company, or Ben & Jerry's. You've all heard of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, yeah? I was a south of England, I was a supplier, and I was supplying I was doing really well. I started up with one freezer van, alhamdulillah, I ended up with 14 vans. I was doing really, really well. This is where my eldest brother comes into the picture. He said to me one day, listen, I need to borrow the van. I've got to go to London. I said, look, there's ice cream in the back, make sure you don't turn off the freezer at the back. But instead of ice cream being in the tubs, there was something else in the tubs, and he was delivering it to London. And when I found that out, I thought, I've got to sell the business. Sold the business. I sat at home doing nothing. My brother was involved in a massive gang in London, and a well-known gang as well. And one day my sister-in-law rang me saying, listen, your brother's gone missing. He hasn't been home for 4 or 5 days. So I said, look, report him missing to the police. After we found out that he'd been arrested in France for human trafficking. So he was involved in bringing people over the border. And I'll tell you all these people what they were part of. Basically, I went to visit my brother in France. He said, please take over my business for me in England. I don't know, maybe he's my eldest brother. I didn't have an option to say no. It just dropped down onto me. I took it anyway. I said, yeah, I'll do it. I got back to England, phoned this guy up. He said to me, okay, well, cut the long story short, it was 25, 30 mansions full of weed. Cannabis. So I got involved in the drug game. This is my second charge, which I got a sentence for. Whilst I was involved in this drug game, my brother had been released from prison now in France, came back to England, and he took over doing whatever he was doing. One thing I'll mention that in a minute. Once he came back to England, he took over, and I took a step back. We were under surveillance from SOCA, who were they? Serious Organised Crime Agency. They were following us for 6-7 months. In December 2010, my brother got arrested for the drugs, went to court, he got bail. He put down 20, 30 grand surety, whatever it was, and he got out. January 2011, for me, I've always been to a police station cell while I was growing up, but I always used to know in my head I'm going to get released. I'm going to get bail, I'll go to the police station cell, I'll sleep for 2 days, catch up my energy, get back out and go on bail. When I got arrested in January 2011 for the drugs, I didn't get bail, I went straight to prison. But that was the first time I ever went to prison. And all these people say, oh, prison was all right, it was okay, it was this. It was the worst time of my life, the worst. I don't want to, there's young kids, but I don't want to say things what I seen in prison, but it wasn't a nice place. It was one of the worst places where it changed me forever. All my mates that I had around me when I was out said to me, oh, we're going to visit you if you go to prison, if anything happens to you. Not a single person came to visit me. And that's the same with everyone I've known in prison, all the brothers I've met in prison, all your friends outside who say, I'm going to visit you if anything happens. You can't count a handful of friends. Whilst I was in prison, I got sentenced for 10 years in total. My brother, he got sentenced for 12 years. My brother got an extra 2 years more than me because he got someone to come into court and lie for him. Do you know where someone might say so innocently, oh, listen, please just say I was there and you covered for me. It's so simple to happen. It's so easy for someone to do it. You get extra 2 years in prison for it. And that's what happened to my brother. Whilst being in prison, sadly, I've seen... Marcel, can I tell you what I've seen in prison? Yeah? Basically, if you think to yourself, oh yeah, I'm going to have £1,000, £500, I'm going to take it to prison, I'll be all right. As soon as you get to prison, they take that money off you. You'd be given £15.50 a week in prison. That's all you're allowed. With that money, you have to put your phone credit on. You don't go to a shop or nothing. You have a piece of paper, it's a canteen sheet, double-sided sheet. And on there, you put down phone credit you want, tuna or mackerel that you order. It's double the price that it is out here. And you've got £15 to use. You just about get by. But it's not just us who suffer when we're in prison. I could say the same for Tristan as well. It's our family who suffer outside. We're not the only ones who do a prison sentence. Our family do one outside with us. Whilst being in prison with my brother, sadly, my dad passed away. And to be honest, it changed my life. It killed me. I couldn't go to the janazah because it was my own doing. My brother, it changed him as well. It changed us both. It made me a better person. It made me think more. It made me realise who's my friends, who's my family. My mum, Hamda, I just met her 2 weeks ago after 3.5 years. She was in Pakistan for a while and I didn't want her to visit me in prison. It was a horrible place. For your family to come in and visit you in a prison, you've got to go through metal detectors, drug dogs, and if the drug dog sits down, that means you have to go for a strip search and stuff like that. It's horrible. But you know what? My family used to visit me, and I used to sit there and hate it, but I said, I put my family through this. Everything I'd done, everything I suffered, my family, everyone, it was all through me. Alhamdulillah, I've got a son now, he's 8 years old. But he's never ever known I've been to prison, up to this day. When my son used to visit me, he was in nappies at the time. And it always had to be this procedure where a prison officer had to open up his nappy to check him, to see there was no drugs coming into the prison. And I used to think, man, I've got this other guy opening my son's nappy up. I should be fuming. But you know what? I put them through it. I put my whole family through it. I moved on. My wife and son moved away from Reading, moved to Bristol now. So just only for me, so that no one could say to my little boy, oh, your dad was in prison. Alhamdulillah, lives a proper life. He doesn't know nothing about I've been to prison. And I'm going to keep that away from him. The reason why, he's 8 years old. We mess around, and he's got these toy guns and handcuffs, and he pretends to handcuff me, saying, all right, that's it, Daddy, you're bad, I'm going to take you to prison, because all the bad people go to prison. I think, oh my God, I'm never going to tell him now. Definitely not going to tell him. So if I could stay away from telling him, inshallah, I will. Through my journey, I've been to loads of prisons. I've been to at least 10. Then I went to open prison. I met Imam Sajid. I don't know if you remember Imam Sajid. I met him in Layhill. Proper Imam. Well, this guy, he deserves the most respect, this guy, because we come across a lot of Imams in prison. And trust me, do you know what? They're just there to tick the box. I'll be honest with you, I've been there. But Imam Sajid, alhamdulillah, he's always looked out for the brothers in prison. Always. Whilst I was in prison, I was out on Rottle from an open prison in South Wales, and I got a job with Gloucestershire Police, helping youngsters, help them make the right choice. and just a bit of guidance on the right path rather than the wrong path like I picked whilst growing up. And it's horrible, but I've seen the worst things. Now I've been out from prison since January. Alhamdulillah, I've got a full-time job. My family's happy, but there's that part of my life, them 5 years, I could never, ever change. It's always been in the back of my head. I've got 5 years now. I'm on licence for the next 4.5 years. So if I make any type of mistake or anything I do, I go straight back to prison. I don't go to a court or nothing. I go straight back to prison. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy. It's mad from the life of crime I've come to. Now I drive like unmarked police cars and stuff. It's mad. But alhamdulillah, it's worked out. My life has totally changed. I could say loads more. I missed out loads more. I was a bit nervous, to be fair. But alhamdulillah, that's me. But Tristan will come up and talk a bit as well. Nice one. So.
Thank you.
Right, first of all, thank you for inviting me into your mosque. I really, really appreciate that. And my story's a little bit different from Fiyaz's. Mine's got nothing to do with drugs or ice cream. Mine was violence. Now, I grew up in quite a nice sort of family setting. My parents were quite sort of bohemian. They were sort of hippies. We grew our own food in the garden. Summers would be when we sat in the garden. My dad would be playing the guitar. My mum would be playing the saxophone. Those kind of things. You know, it was a real sort of nice upbringing. My dad had a good job, and you know, I like I said, for the first, you know, sort of 8 or 9 years of my life, it was a really, really nice place to be around. And then my father, before he had met my mother, my father used to use drugs, and my mum was sort of, when he met my mum cleaned him up and everything else. But through sort of redundancy and he decided to go back to university, he started using drugs again and caused quite a lot of problems in the family. My mum was very good at hiding things from us. She used to keep a lot of it out of our way, you know, she used to protect us, but eventually the strain got too much and my mother and my father split up. A little bit later on, my mum met somebody else, and he wasn't a particularly nice fella. He was, first of all, he was very good to me. We used to take the football, that kind of stuff. You know, he was a lorry driver, very much a man's man. I quite liked that. I sort of looked up to him. But sort of the minute that he moved in with us, his attitude changed, and he was quite abusive to me, to my mum. The first real sort of incident, and I am mindful that there is some young people in this, so I will keep things toned quite down. But I lost a nut of his fishing reel, little nut, and he asked me where it was, and I said, I don't know. I didn't know, obviously I was lying to him, but I told him I didn't. And he picked me off the floor on my throat, and then my feet dangling off the floor. And I was really shocked because I'd never had an adult commit an act of violence towards me before like that. You know, I had a sort of smack bottom and that kind of thing, but I'd never had anyone do anything like that to me. And I told my mother, but whether she didn't want to believe it or whether she was fighting what to do, I don't know. But she told me to sort of basically go on with things, you know. And that sort of set a pattern of behaviour for quite a few years with him. He was very, very physically abusive, but more than anything else, he was mentally abusive as well. He was very good at controlling you and keeping you in the palm of his hand. And he used to control my mother as well through sort of violence and threats of violence towards me and my twin sister as well. I had an older brother, but he had moved out at this point. So, you know, obviously, if my mum didn't do as she was told, she'd either get physically abused herself, or he would threaten to come and physically abuse me. And so, like I said, this was the pattern of behaviour, you know, and you know, we had no choice but to put up with it, really. Towards the sort of later years of his life, my granddad came to live with us, and I shared a bedroom with him. And one night, when my mother and my stepfather used to go out, when they used to come back, I used to try and go to sleep before they came back, because I didn't want to listen to what would have been going on. And if I couldn't go to sleep, and I was awake when they come in, if I heard a slam door, all the anxiety would rise up in me, and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep until it finished. If they came in and they were laughing, then I'd go to sleep. Well, this one night was particularly bad, and without going into details, he assaulted my mother really, really badly, and she called my granddad for help. Now, she never did that before, never ever, so, you know, it's quite bad. my granddad tried to help her, but he was an old man, and so then my mother called me for help, and I got out of bed and I couldn't move. I stood on the floor and I remember I couldn't move. I was too frightened to go through the door, and I wanted to go and help my grandfather because he was at that time the closest thing to a father I really had, and but I couldn't. Without going into the real details of it, it ended up the police were called. We were bundled into a bedroom before that. He tried to sort of break through the wall to get us and everything else. He couldn't. You know, I should also mention I had a little sister at this point as well. My mother had another child with him, and the police came. And I remember when the police came to the house, they asked my mother if she wanted to press charges, which she said yes. And then they asked him if he wanted to press charges. I said, what? And I said, yeah, we asked him if he wanted to press charges. And it's because whilst he was defending himself, my mother was scrubbing his face. And so I was just gobsmacked by this, and it caused me to have real negative feelings towards the police. You know, I don't use the words lightly, but I did actually hate the police at this point, and for a long time afterwards because of that. And my father's brother, my uncle, he had died a couple of years previously, but he was a police officer, so I'd always held him in quite high regard before this. But this incident, I really didn't like them. Without going into massive details after that, there was a few more incidents that happened in front of my granddad, and he ended up having a heart attack in front of me about 2 or 3 days after that, and he died about 2 days after that. So in the space of a week, I've gone from this horrible incident of domestic violence to my granddad being dead. And I thought my mum's bound to get rid of him now. She's bound to tell him to leave and everything else. She didn't, because, like I say, he was very good at psychologically controlling, and he'd made threats to come back and do things to us all if she did. So she let him stay, and it caused me to have quite negative feelings towards my mum for a long time. So sort of, this went on for a couple of years. I ended up moving out and everything else. Eventually, my mother did get rid of him and move away. And when he left our lives, I made myself a promise that no one was ever going to make me feel like that again. No matter what someone did to me, no matter how big or small they were, I was always going to give an account to myself. I was never going to be the person who was cowering behind the door while his granddad was being attacked. I thought that's never going to happen again. And so it did, and that's where I lived my life for quite a few years. You know, without going into details of violence that I've committed, I committed many violent acts over the years. Very few that I ever got arrested for. You know, I ended up in court for one once, which I got away with. I got someone to lie for me in court. You know, she was a girl with a child. That's how selfish I was at the time. I got her to go and commit perjury. No sense of thought for her or her children or anything like that. So, you know, I was riding my luck for quite a few years. Eventually leading on to the incident that I went to prison for. Now, that's the one that I will talk about. And, you know, there's about 10 years of violent incidents in between that like I said, I won't go into. It was a New Year's Eve, and I went out with, I was married at this point. I went out with my wife, and we went out and we were drinking far too much. We got to sort of 12 o'clock, everyone does the Happy New Year kind of thing and everything else. And then we got to a massive argument, we got to a blazing row. She went her way, I went mine, I went to a friend's house. It was a mutual friend. She ended up coming to the friend's house afterwards, and we both left at the same time. We were arguing, walking up the road. There was a bit of pushing and shoving. She tried to attack me. I held her, and some fellas walked around the corner and got involved. I started fighting with them. I wish that I got the better of the two of them, which is probably the worst thing that could have happened, because they called for help, and more people came, and eventually there was quite a number of people, and myself. I was assaulted really badly. I assaulted them quite badly as well. You know, it was definitely a lot going on without going into details. So I went back to my house. I armed myself with a knife, and I stabbed two of them. And without going into details again, because I am aware there is young people in the room, they were very lucky to live. A few snapshots of other things around that evening is one of the fellas that were stabbed, his daughter was walking home from the pub, She was about 17, 18, and like a lot of people do, she saw a commotion going on down the road, and she thought, "Oh, what's happening down there?" She's gone to have a look, and at that time, it's as she's got closer, she's seen it as her father. And at this point, he's actually dying on the floor. Luckily, he did not die. I got taken off. I got remanded straight into prison, and at 35 years old, for the first time in my life, I got to prison. My mother received a phone call while I was in the police station. She was 62 at the time, saying that her son had been arrested for 2 counts of attempted murder. I did that to her. We talk about family, Fiyaz has talked about affecting family and stuff. That's what I did. That's how she started. 2011 was with that phone call. My father, when he found out, it was a little bit later on in the day, he was looking after my nan, who was quite frail. He sank to his knees in the kitchen when he found out. That's what I did to him by doing that. My daughter, basically, she went to sleep New Year's Eve. She woke up New Year's Day, and her father had vanished off the face of the planet. That's in the short term what I did to my family, and that's just that night alone. That's not even talking about the long-term effects. I ended up getting remanded. I was on remand for 9 months. And then I got sentenced to the charge got dropped to a lesser charge of GBH, wounded with intent, section 18s, which carried at the time a sentence called an IPP, which was an absolutely horrific sentence. Luckily, I didn't get one of those. I could have got 16 years. I didn't. I got a 12-year sentence. They gave me a third off for a guilty plea, and I got 2 8-year sentences to run, which I did 4 years of, and I'm serving 4 years in the community now. During my time in prison, I used it as productively as I could. I started a degree. I got as much education as I could. I became a listener, which meant I was trained by the Samaritans. So if someone else was in trouble, they would come and talk to me. Fiyaz was a listener as well while we were away. And eventually, I got moved to open conditions. And when I went to open conditions, I started working on something called Great Expectations, which was working with Gloucester Police. And I always remember the conversation when I was asked to do it. And I said, yeah, okay, it's a day out. I remember thinking to myself, it's a day out of prison. It's a day out of prison for a day. I just think to myself, there's got to be more to it. There's got to be more to it. The police don't come and work with us. It's not like that. But the more I got involved with the programme, I'm working with young people, and I just thought to myself, I used to feel doing things like this, I used to feel really silly standing up in front of people telling my story. But I thought to myself, if it stops one person going to prison, if it stops one person going through a day of what I went through, and don't get me wrong, I brought that on myself. I'm not asking for sympathy for that. But if it stops that for one person, it's got to be a good thing. It's got to be. If I got to stand up in front of a lot of people and make a fool of myself, then so be it. I got released in January 2015, right at the start of the year. And I was lucky to be given a job doing this things like this full time. Very, very lucky again. It's a lot of people get released from prison with £40 in their pocket, nowhere to live. They go to a hostel and they're set with no chance. Like I said, myself and Fiyaz as well. We were really lucky to be offered a job. If I can give a snapshot of prison life again, I won't go into the specifics of exactly what I've seen there. But for myself, the worst thing I saw was the self-harm. Just the most horrific self-harm you can imagine, And when people say prison's not that hard, prison's easy, prison's a holiday camp, well, if people don't self-harm at holiday camps, people don't self-harm in easy places, people don't commit suicide at holiday camps. And that's the reality of what happens in prison. And Fiyaz talked about you might have a fight with someone out in the street or something like that, and that's where it lies. But prison is full of people who will take violence to a level that's just nothing like you've ever seen before. And you're there. You can't, if you've got a problem with someone in Gloucester, you can shut your door. You can go to different places they go. You don't have that option when you're in a prison wing. You've got to see these people, and that's what you set yourself up for. And the sentence your family do is almost worse than the sentence you do. My daughter was misbehaving, and I phoned her up, and I said, I was talking to her, and I said, so why are you misbehaving, babe? She said, well, Dad said, you got sent to prison because you was naughty. And I said, yeah. She said, well, if I'm naughty, I get to come and live with you. And that's what she thought. You know, and that's what I did. And I had to explain to her, and I said, well, no, you know, it's got to be the exact opposite. So you only kind of get to come see me if you're good. But that's what I did to her. And everyone says that, you know, you hear a lot of people say things on the street, and they say things like, oh, I'd go to prison for my kids. Someone did something to my kids, I'd go to prison. Well, one thing I learned while I was away is when you go to prison, you're not there to protect the children. And things happened to my daughter while I was in prison. Her mother wasn't looking after her very well. A few other things happened, and she was taken off her mother. And I wasn't there to protect her. You know, I'm her dad. I was the one who's meant to be there to stop things like that ever happening to her. And I couldn't, because I was selfish enough to have myself locked away. You know, and if I can leave you all with one thing today, it's just this, right? Every action has a reaction, right? Does the reaction warrant the action? If someone looks at you a bit funny in the street, is it worth going up and being violent towards them? Well, probably not. You know, someone pushes in front of you in a queue, is it worth having an argument over? It's not, is it? You know, and that's me. Thank you very, very much for listening. Appreciate that.
Tristan, this way from like activity for kids, how to keep them busy, what can we do and offer? You know what I mean? Like, what can you advise you could give to the kids?
What do you mean, what, in terms of expectation?
No, anything. Just be careful who your friends are.
Okay.
General advice.
In general.
Sorry?
General advice for everyone.
Just general advice for people. It's, you know, we used to have another mentor who used to come out with us, and he was an ex-heroin addict. And his biggest motto in life was, you're only as good as the company you keep.
Oh,
you know, and I really do believe that. I think you are. If you surround yourself with people, do you know, I'm in a position now, I'm in a lovely, lovely position where I've got a group of friends, and there's only one of them knows I've been to prison. It's fantastic. They're straight going people, they're normal people. You know, they don't get in fights, they don't get themselves into trouble. You know, they're normal, straight going people. And it's lovely. You know, I can go out with these people, and I don't have to worry about what they're going to do. You know, their actions are not going to get me sent back to prison. And that's just a real, real nice thing. So, you know, keep good company, you know, listen to your parents. You know, I wish I'd listened more to my parents. You know, it's, and you know, you only get one mum and dad, you know, like, listen to them. Enjoy them, you know, take their advice in. You know, if you have a faith, stick to your faith. You know, if that's what makes you a better person, then allow yourself to be that better person. You know, engage your brain in activities as well. Don't sit there vegging, playing PlayStation till 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, there's far more productive activities you can do. Go out and kick a football. You know, that kind of thing. You know, and try your hardest in school. Because I can't begin to tell you, like the younger people in here, like how important that is for the rest of your life. You know, that's your opportunity to make your life a lot easier when you get older. In education, you know, it's a brilliant thing. You know, we live in a country where we have a free education. You know, some people are not that lucky.
I'd like to thank Brother Fiyaz and Tristan for coming along. I'd like to finish on one note Tristan was speaking about. He was speaking about friends. We're given this advice. He gave it from, obviously he's not a Muslim, so he gave it just from a general worldly perspective. Rasulullah ﷺ tells us to that each one of you will follow the path of his friend. If your friend goes one way, you'll follow him the same way. Because of peer pressure, like Fiyaz was speaking about as well. He said things were forced onto him, things that he didn't want to do. Because that's what peer pressure is about. We're forced to do things we don't want to do. And now we need to decide. There are two stages in our life, two types of people. Either we are the influenced, or we are the ones causing the influence. Either we influence others, or we are influenced by others. And there's no middle path. So the persons we're with and the friends we're with, let's think for a second. The aim is to be good. Am I influencing them to be good? Are they influencing me to be good? If it's neither, and it's the opposite, either I'm making them bad or they're making me bad, you know what you've got to do. You need to stop. You need to cut this chain, because the further you go on and the more loyal you become to your friends, the further you get pulled into a trap, and the harder it is to get yourself out of this trap. Like Fiyaz was mentioning, Tristan was saying they got to prison. He said he had hundreds of friends before prison. And how many came to visit you in prison?
Not a handful.
Not a handful. His family wanted to come, his wife, his kids came, and not just a handful of people came to visit him. Who are your friends? This is really important for us, because most of the things we do, even parents, as parents, most of the things we'll do, if we see our child doing bad, what's the first thing we say? He's a good kid, it's his friend. It's his friend. So even as a parent, you understand, your child's friend is affecting him. So as a parent, it's your responsibility to control, to discipline your children, to make sure they're not going in the wrong friendship circles. And this is your responsibility. Attach them. Like Tristan said, if you have a faith, stick to the faith. We know Islam, coming to the masjid, makes us better people. Stay in the masjid, stay in the company of the people in the masjid. And there's no greater thing. And yet he mentioned education. Most of the people on the streets, let's be honest, most of the people on the streets committing crime are those who don't have an education. Why? Because most of the reason crime is committed by anger and desire. Two things, anger and desire. Desire for wealth, desire for dunya, desire for money, desire for respect, and anger. Anger gets you into positions, desire gets you into positions you don't want to be. If you have wealth, if you get a good job, if you have a good education, you get a degree, you get a nice job, you're earning a stable income, you won't need to run towards a desire for wealth. Because you have given yourself a stable income. And if you have good friends and good family around you, they won't let any opportunity come to you where you become angry. This is why, again, family and friends, education, we can't stress it enough. The reason why I call these guys today, some people might be thinking, okay, they're not wearing a jubba or a topi, or they're not Muslims. It doesn't matter. This is advice for every single one of us. They haven't come to us to preach our religion. They've come to us to make us better human beings, to help us make decisions in life. There will be youngsters in here, and not even youngsters, people maybe slightly older, who have friends who they know are taking them in wrong places. And if you think, no, everybody else is going to go down for the crime, but I'll be saved, it's not happening. They mention themselves. If anything, if you get put in the interrogation room and there's a few others, they're all going to make sure you go down. So if we think we're going to survive and our friends won't, it won't happen like that. So I'll make the same appeal they made. That it's time to change our lives. I said before Ramadan and in Ramadan, the main word for us is change. Change everything for the better. What we are now, change it tomorrow, make it better. If you have a bad set of friends, influence them to become better. If you think they won't become better, then you cut ties. You're saving yourself. Because when you go to, if Allah save a soul, but if you ever end up in prison, then those friends are going to abandon you. We've had experience from people in Gloucester, been to prison, they've come out, they've said the exact same thing. Our friends are no longer friends in prison. We come back outside, they're like, I would have, or I should have, I could have. But he didn't. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us take a lesson from every type of person, take a lesson in a way where we can change our lives, give us good friends, help us value our family, help us take nasihat and advice from our family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all our shortcomings, accept our sitting here, and make Ramadan, there's 3-4 days left of Ramadan, make it a means of us bettering ourselves, not just better Muslims, better human beings. Being a better Muslim means you become a better human being. Let's become better human beings, let's become better Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our intentions. Thank you very much for coming. Jazakumullah khairan for coming. It means a lot. It means a lot to these guys as well. They work with the police for this. So people can come and they could spread their message far and wide to as many people as they can see. There'll be a recording available as well, inshallah, for those who weren't present. And if anybody needs any help with career advice, maybe they're involved in crime or something, Great Expectations work with people like this. If you think you're not going the right way, especially if you're a parent and you think, you know what, my child, I don't know where my child's going to end up, he's got bad company, I suspect him of doing something wrong anyway, Great Expectations are the guys to speak to. Inshallah, they'll give you advice about how to look after your children, and of course, they'll also help your children. As Muslims, we have two options. We have both options, let's say. We have the Islamic option. Come to the masjid and speak to the imam, speak to the ulama, speak to the elders of the community. Speak to those who are experienced. We have Mawlana Sajid, Mawlana Abdullah Sabah here. We have other elders of the community who've experienced, who've been with people like this. And then of course you have the worldly side. So for the dini side, come to the masjid. For the worldly side, we have people like the police, people like Great Expectations who can help us. We take help from everybody. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a sound understanding. Accept our sitting here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us united in this way and unite us in the hereafter. Ameen wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your time.